15 minutes, I will be sharing some insight from the consumers in terms of data, what they are saying at this very moment, and how we can actually help us and our brands to move forward. What we actually have here as some of these challenging times is the fact that if you look at the country now, even the whole world in general, everything is actually going south, and Nigeria is not actually left out in this particular case. If you look at the current figures in terms of how the economy is looking for Nigeria, we see that at the moment the inflation rate is at about 18.3% as at March 2021. The unemployment rate is actually on the increase at 33% at this moment in January 21. If you look at our foreign exchange reserve, it has actually dipped to about 632 million in March. This is the lowest that we can ever see in the last 10 months. And the other aspect is the fact that the exchange rates at the moment is almost like at 490, 500 in the parallel markets. But of course, CBN says they sell for 380 per dollar. But if you look at all these things, it's actually affecting the common man in the market. I mean, everyone knows, from whether you look at it from socio-economic class A to the last socio-economic class B that you are looking at, there is so much pressure. And what this has actually resulted to is the fact that it's putting a lot of pressure on the citizens' disposable income. If you look at that slide where it says putting a lot of pressure on the citizens' disposable income, if you look at what we presently have in terms of the share of wallet for the consumers, looking at the inflation rate affecting everybody, the unemployment is on the increase, and when you now look at the share of wallet for an average Nigerian, you actually see where they are prioritizing what they are spending, that little resources that they have now. And so if you look at this chart that is up there, you can actually see that the top thing that they are spending their money on is actually raw food stuff, followed by foods and provisions, then followed by airtime. So to them, they need to survive. This is a focus for them with these challenges. Number one, inflation is on the increase. And even if you look at the food inflation alone, it's even far higher. And so there is a lot of pressure on that little resources that they are actually having with them. So that little resources in terms of priority, this is what they are prioritizing on. They are prioritizing on raw food stock. They are prioritizing on packaged food stock and provisions to still be able to survive. And they are prioritizing on airtime, possibly to get engaged with people. Now everybody has moved to online. So many things are actually happening at this time. So people are buying airtime. The next one is the transport. We can actually say that. So with all these challenges that they are facing, this is how the consumers are spending their current money. So if you move to the next slide, my question says, how are consumers reacting to this economic pressure? Because there is pressure on the land, there is challenge on the land. So how are they reacting to this pressure? So if you look at this next slide, what I actually have is consumers are prioritizing their needs in the scheme of things. And how are they doing this? In the study that we actually did in Ipsos with about 2,300 trusts responding across the whole country, we were able to come out with about 4 buckets in terms of how the consumers are now spending their money. So the first thing they are looking at is that they are looking at the essentials. So for the essential, this is necessary for survival. The second one is treats. These are indulgences with immediate purchase is considered to be justifiable. So I can still survive without it, but it's also in the ranking of things is the next thing to them. So we call it a treat. Essentials is for survival. The next one is post-postables. And what do we mean by post-postables? These are the items that they believe that, oh, I can always purchase it at other times. I can survive without it. And the last one is the expendables. They perceive that this one is not actually necessary at this very moment. So, in terms of ranking of things at this very moment, because of the impact of the inflation, because of the impact of the COVID, because of the impact of banditry and all the rest, the little resources that they actually have with them now, they are prioritizing. And they are looking at what are those things I want to put in the essentials, what are those things I want to put in the treats, what are those things that I can actually postpone till other time, what are those things that are considered very unnecessary at this very moment. And so, what we did during the course of this study is actually to see how respondents or consumers actually budgeted all these things. And so, if you look at the next slide, in terms of the essentials, you can see toothpaste, you can see bathing soap, you can see detergent, you can see body cream, you can see noodles. So if you look at that percentage, it actually goes down. So if you see all the other categories I have shown in the previous slide to the alcohol and all the rest, so it actually goes down. But in terms of ranking for the essentials, these are the top four that are coming up. And if you look at the treats also, you are talking about the carbonated soft drinks, fruit juices, malt drinks, biscuits, drinking yogurt alone. If you look at what we have, what the consumers are pocketing as that this thing I can postpone it another time to buy. You have bleaches, to wash their houses. You have sport drinks, you have nutritional drink, you have disinfectants, and you have cereals. And when you look at the expendables, this thing at this very moment, they are key to me, but I can actually postpone them. What we actually have is you have cigarettes, you have bitters, you have spirit, you have beer. So this thing to them, in terms of essentials, I need to survive, and that is why you have everything that has to do with food store, everything that has to do with bathing soap, everything that has to do with toothpaste, because these things are core to me. So these are the things that consumers are focusing at this very moment. And for the expendables, are things that I can always postpone till other time, but I still need them. But don't let us forget the fact that all these lists, so because I'm sure that some people want to ask, so does it mean that in the category that I actually play is not coming up as a treat? The list is actually endless, but I just try to pick the top four. So for us to actually do that, in terms of the top 5 things they are thinking about in terms of essentials, is mostly foods, personal care. In terms of expendables, there are things that cigarettes, bitters, beer, because they believe that they can still survive without this particular one. And so, my next area is actually to say, in terms of all these pressures, these challenges, the way the consumers are bucketing all these things, what are the opportunities that we are actually seeing now? So we conducted a dipstick study among some consumers around November, December last year to actually see in terms of how they are behaving, in terms of the shoppers are embracing different categories. And we actually noticed that there is actually an increase in the rate at which consumers are going online to buy things. So one very key thing that we noticed within this period is the fact that people that naturally we go to we go market and all the rest, they are now shopping online. Of course, it is. The traditional, the offline is still very big, but we have started seeing that growth in the e-commerce. We've seen consumers actually purchasing stuff that normally they would want to go to the nearest shop or to the nearest kiosk to purchase. And we noticed that when we talk to these people, about 50% of them actually confirm that they at one time or the other something online. Within the last 2 weeks, some of them have actually purchased almost like about 37% that they've actually purchased within the last 2 weeks, which clearly shows that that culture of just getting to the nearest shop to buy is still there, but they are also having an opportunity to buy online. And what we also try to look at in terms of which platform they are actually getting some of this, we realize that about 38% of these respondents that we check with actually purchasing from Jumia. About 16% are still buying for click and mortar. That means that like Walmart, like ShopRite, and so they just go to the website of these existing shops and they just pick it up. And then the next one is Korea, which is about 7%. So in terms of where these people are actually buying online, Jumia is coming in as number one. Then the click and mortar is coming as 12%, and the rest. And going back to what are they now purchasing? From the previous slide that we look at in terms of looking at the essential things and the treats, we also realize that when they go online to purchase, the major thing they're also purchasing is the personal care products, the foods and beverages, which confirms that fact that pressure on the little income they are actually having is all about survival. And so any little money that they have at that very moment, even if they are not able to go to the offline to purchase this thing, they are still able to purchase some of these products online. And what they are purchasing is personal care, food and beverages, of course household goods, are some of the key things that they're actually purchasing online from these different stores. And we check how do they normally, which platform do they actually use in trying to get some of this. Some of them use tablets, some of them use smartphone, and some of them actually use their personal computer to get all this product. And to me, the fact remains that for brand owners, we now start to begin to say that, okay, how do I begin to position my brand? How do I begin to make my brands available at the places where consumers are actually shopping? So if traditionally I've always been offline, then there is a need for me to actually say that the consumers are actually changing at this very moment. The way they are purchasing is actually changing. They can actually stay in the comfort of their rooms and make requests, make purchases, and they just actually move ahead. So we also try to look at Jumia data in terms of what has actually happened pre-COVID and what is happening post-COVID. So when we look at the data that the sales data of Jumia for almost like for some years, from October 2019 till last year, what we actually find out is the fact that at the beginning of before COVID, what people normally goes for on their website is actually to buy things that has to do with fashion, beauty, and computer accessories. That is pre-COVID. Now, after COVID, and when COVID set in, what we realize that consumers are prioritizing at this very moment is that they've started prioritizing things that have to do with their lives, personal care. And if you are able to see that slide, we actually bucket what they were selling, what they were buying then, in terms of what they were, in terms of HP, Microsoft, shoe, body lotion. Those are things that they were purchasing during lockdown. What we find out that they were purchasing most are food. So you see Eva, you see P, you see Pepsi. So in terms of, if you see the next chart that you're actually looking at, the bigger the size of those brands, the bigger the quantity of things they are actually purchasing during the lockdown. And from the data that we saw, we actually see that Eva is very big during the lockdown. Milk is big. Pepsi Cola is big. Coke is also big. These are things that has to do with food, things that is still tied down to all those information that has to do with they need survival. And that is why they are putting all these things. Now, post-COVID, we also look at that Jumia data and you see things beginning to do with fashion pre-COVID has actually come down. And what we are now seeing is that you see them buying Maggi online from Jumia, you still see them buying Eva, you see buying them Colgate, which has to do with personal care. And it just ties down to that fact that in terms of the pressure that this situation has actually caused the consumers is the fact that that little money that they have, that inflation that has eaten to the 500,000 that you have about a year ago. If you go to the market now, most of the women here will know that, okay, if you go to the market and you say, oh, I bought this thing, and you see what you have actually used $200 to purchase at the end of the day, and you see that this thing, the inflation has actually affected us. And so the consumers are reprioritizing what they need to spend their money on. Even if they need to spend that money, survival is the first thing. Personal care, food, I need to take my bath, I need to wash my mouth, I need to brush my teeth, I need to eat healthy food. And so after then, the next thing to them is airtime. After then, they begin to think of another thing. And so brands need to begin to see how can I be able to come into this space. Even if I'm playing within the FMCG category, how can I even, the little resources that the little income, disposable income they even have now, how can they even spend it on me? And if you look at the last slide that I actually have, which is very interesting. I said single-use packaging is actually driving affordability and availability. And this is also an indication of a shrinking middle class and declining economy. It's very funny to me because you now see some brands that 5 years ago, we all refer to them as premium brands. Oh, for most of us that are, deals with brands, there are some brands that you virtually say that, okay, I cannot see my brands in this form of pack format. But now we are having a brand like Bailey's in sachet. You have a brand like Dettol liquid in sachet. You have oatmeal. You have Ovaltine. The one that is very interesting to me, and that is why I actually put this picture, is a pizza being hot in traffic. So, if your pizza that you will probably eat in the comfort of your office, comfort of your home, comfort of taking your family to that place to eat, and you are not actually seeing pizza being hot in the street, is a clear indication of the challenges that consumers are going through. That little resources that they are spending it on things that are for survival. And so what most of the brands are now doing now is actually to see how can we make these products more affordable to them. But I did a little calculation, and I even find out that with this little, all this sachet that we think is actually for affordable, is actually a cheap on the consumers. That little resources that you're actually looking at. So take for example, conflict, 50 gram is sold for 100 naira. And so if you need to buy 10, that is 1,000 naira, right? So that's 500 gram at 50 gram per 100 naira. That is 1,000 naira. Right? If I go and buy the bulk pack, which is 500 grams, it actually goes for 750. So at the end of the day, that consumer that we actually think we are helping to purchase is actually spending more, but because it doesn't have that money to purchase, it has to buy those things in single serve. But by the time he actually now sit down and say that, okay, in a month I'm able to buy this 50 grams for 10 times, he has actually spent more, but he doesn't have that money to purchase at the time, and that is a challenge. And so it's it's both for the consumers and also for the manufacturers. That little resources is becoming shrinking. I'm not even sure whether we even have any middle, the middle income earners now. Everything is actually collapsed. That middle class is collapsed. So what we have is those people that are at the top and those people at the bottom. So in summary, for me, what we have seen consumers do post-COVID-19 is the fact that consumers are now, their buying patterns is more to the essentials, that is more to food and personal care. We also see a lot of shop owners, manufacturers using multiple channels to reach out to consumers. So people have started actually exploring the fact that you can actually buy online, offline. Those are some of those things that we've been able to notice during this time. What we also see that a lot of manufacturing companies are also coming out with SKU towards the middle class people, just like we see in those places. And then the other thing that we also see is the fact that the neighboring dispatch riders is also on the increase. Because people are now buying online, or you can actually buy, and that is why you see food business is now on the increase. There's so many, you see people that are now specializing in jollof rice that people can actually order from their offices and all the rest. So for them, I can't go and use a UPS to transport that. Even the nearby shop are now having online platform that you can actually order from. And so that actually gave rise to a lot of dispatch companies in the neighborhood, and you see it springing up almost everywhere. And to me, these are some of those things that we've been able to see in the last few months in terms of pre-COVID, post-COVID. There's pressure on the consumers. The consumers are prioritizing the little income they have, and what they are spending it on is on food and some personal care. Thank you.